Good evening. Welcome to HMS Newsbite. I'm Damien Obey, and making the headlines in this week's news: Royal Navy salutes Napoleon and Saint Helena, Brandy launch and Napoleon Re-Enactment for Bicentenary, community news with kite flying and Cancer Awareness Month continuing, and highlights from this week's football. The island has enjoyed playing host to French VIPs and Royal Navy visitors in the last few weeks. Anne Clark toured visiting frigate, the HMS Lancaster, to see what life is like aboard a Royal Navy vessel.
The Royal Navy has been visiting Saint Helena for the Bicentenary of Napoleon's landing on the island. James Bay has seen the HMS Lancaster anchored, and she is a Type 23 Duke-class frigate, weighing a massive 4,500 tons and measures 133 metres in length.
So Lancaster's one of 13 frigates, part of the Royal Navy's Duke-class frigates. We're a general-purpose frigate, which means we don't have the same sonar suite as some of the more specific anti-submarine platforms. What we do have, though, in big handfuls of weaponry is clearly the gun, very much makes it a warship and is kind of iconic on the forecastle. Directly behind in the silo is our point defence missile system. So in there are a number of missiles which are for air targets, so an enemy incoming missile or aircraft, and that's very much a defensive system. We can also launch torpedoes from the ship, and we'll have a little bit of a look at that when we get back down aft. So from the torpedo magazine at the front end of the hangar, we can put torpedoes directly out of the side. The gun itself is 4.5 inches. It will fire around about 20 to 24 rounds per minute. The rate of fire will vary depending on how quickly the guys can get the rounds out of the canisters and into the loading arm. Initially it will be a much more sustained rate of fire because it's an automatic loading system, but once the guys then start to mandronically move the round in, clearly they tire after a big shoot.
The Lancaster operates a Wildcat, which is a multi-purpose helicopter capable of a wide range of roles, from anti-submarine warfare to search and rescue.
It's 2 years old. It weighs about 6 tonne. It can do up to about 200 miles on 1 tank of gas. It's very good and it's very unique for us because it's a multi-role aircraft. We can role change it to the fact that we can have anti-submarine piracy, anti-piracy, and we can also be search and rescue. So the aircraft has always got to be serviceable in a serviceable condition. Its main hangar is in here. We can fold the blades and we keep it stored in the hangar overnight and during the day, and then when we need to, in 45 minutes at alert state, we can then get that out onto the spot in the air with the 2 aircrew and then take that flying. So there's a team of 10 engineers. I'm the head engineer. This class is a senior maintenance rating, and I've got 10 engineers underneath me. There's 2 aircrew that's in that aircraft, and the design of the aircraft now is it's trying to take it more away from the pilot and the observer and to give it more onto the computer, so it's a lot more computer-based aircraft. It's almost like going from a brand new car that we've got now to, say, a 1970s car that we used to have before. The future for the Wildcat at the moment is the weapon systems that's designed by the French, and they'll be giving us a anti-surface missile, smaller missiles as well as a larger anti-surface missile. We can currently carry torpedoes and the M3M machine gun. This is used purely for anti-piracy roles, and we also got 2 Royal Marine snipers on board. So we take our own snipers in the back of the aircraft. They've got their own personal weapons, as well as they can operate the M3M machine gun.
The central internal control room is called the Control Centre, and it is from this room that the Navy monitor the systems of the ship.
A lot of what you'll see in here wouldn't look out of place on any civilian ship. It's where primarily the propulsion is controlled from, so the 4 diesel generators and the 2 gas turbines, but also all the ventilation, high pressure salt water, chilled water, all the various services we need for the warship specific equipment to work. It's always manned in here. We're at anchor at the moment, so there's a smaller team in here than what there would be if we were at sea. But they're keeping a watchful eye not only over the equipment but also any alarms. The board behind you, which has got the plan of the ship on, if there were ever an incident on board, this is where they manage that, what we call the internal battle. So if there were an event such as a fire, a flood, that would all be managed, or the response to that would be managed from in here, and all of the direction to the teams on the ground is fed out of this compartment, as it were.
It's the operations room is where all of the radars and sensors we have on board feed into. And it allows me, as the Principal Warfare Officer, to fight the ship on behalf of the captain. We kind of like to say it's a little bit like an orchestra down here. So all of the guys in all of the different seats are doing their own thing, so playing their own instrument almost. And myself, as the Principal Warfare Officer, in the middle, all I'm doing is just kind of conducting that orchestra. And every now and again, just giving it a little tap to make sure that they're fighting the ship correctly and doing their jobs correctly. All on behalf of the captain, who sits on my right and gives me a clap round the ear if I'm not doing it correctly.
The complement of around 200 sailors are divided amongst the main departments: operations, weapon engineering, marine engineering and logistics, but everyone knows that the place to be is on the bridge.
So the equipment on this bridge has sort of been updated all the way through the ship's life. So the ship being about 20 years old now, we've constantly had new equipment bolted on. Some of the basics of the equipment we use isn't too dissimilar from merchant ships, so what you would see on the RMS Saint Helena or what you see on Gold Rover. The way we integrate it and the sources that feed into them is what sort of makes the main difference between this and this in a civilian ship. We've got two radars up here, two navigational radars, and then the third radar is controlled down in the ops room. And then the two screens you see at the front and the back, this is our electronic charting system. It's called WECDIS, Warship Electronic Chart Display System. It's a commercial system that's got some military bolt-ons, and the easiest way to imagine it is it's a military tom-tom for the sea. It's normally fed by GPS, but if we lose GPS we can feed the position by a number of other sources. And most of our navigation and sensors feed into it, so we don't use paper charts anymore in the Navy. We just rely on this system completely, and we've got 3 systems, so we've got a lot of redundancy should there be any issue.
The ship's company took part in a football match, which will be covered in the sports section, and a wreath-laying ceremony at Napoleon's tomb on the exact date of the Emperor's exile to Saint Helena. They were joined by visiting French dignitaries who were also on island to mark the Bicentenary. On Friday, the 16th of October, the Navy readied themselves to leave the island, but before they left, they took the opportunity to motor past James Bay and signal a salute to the island. They left heading north to Africa and will continue their 9-month deployment.
SAMS's Anne Clark there with a report on the HMS Lancaster, who were visiting for the Bicentenary. St Helena Tourism had arranged for activities to be held over the weekend to mark the historic event of Napoleon's arrival. One of the main events was a reenactment of the Emperor stepping ashore at James Bay.
Okay, so as you all are aware, we are recreating a scene from 1970 with the BBC film that was documented by Kenneth Griffith. The plan is to gather around the seafront for when Napoleon stepped shore on the island for the first time on the 17th of October, 1815.
The French Emperor was played by Tourism's Merrill Joshua, who donned a custom-made exact replica of the famous outfit worn by the once conqueror of Europe. Merrill held his composure and exuded distaste for St Helena, very much as the once great man had reportedly done on his arrival. Napoleon Bonaparte lived on St Helena under the constant watch of his jailers until his death 5 years later. The celebrations of Napoleon's arrival have also been seized upon by international investors who have worked with local companies on business opportunities revolving around his connection to St Helena. Liam Yan went to visit one such business.
As part of the island's bicentenary celebrations, Paul Hickling launched the latest product out of his distillery, the Napoleon Brandy. The brandy joins the likes of the White Lion Spice Rum, the Jamestown Gin, the Tunji Wine, and other products from Paul's distillery. Paul, tell me about this new brandy, from the birth of the idea to the recent launch.
Yes, basically in 2009 I had the idea of looking forward to the Bicentenary, of making something that was different from my normal portfolio of products. And because French love brandy, I think Napoleon used to drink it, I decided to ship in some grape juice from South Africa, turn it into brandy by fermenting it into a wine, then distilling it, and then putting it into a barrel. And that process takes 5 years basically to make a good 5-year brandy. So the idea came about just by a business idea basically.
And is the brandy available just here in Ireland, or have you exported some as well, and what prices are they being sold?
Okay, well basically 3 years ago, Olivier Pascal, who we may all know on Saint Helena as the Swiss chocolate man, he came here and he bought all of my brandy. He saw a business opportunity. It is available here. There are 80 bottles available, of which I think at least 10 or 12 are already sold. But the rest has already been exported to Geneva, where he operates from, so it's available in the whole of Europe. The price in Europe is, I think it's €450 a bottle. That's in this beautiful shaped box. Olivier was very adamant that he wanted something local to go with the bottle, so Shape have made a beautiful box which is actually finished off in Europe. He is also offering a leather box. So it's €450 a bottle, but in Saint Helena he's got a special offer of £200 a bottle.
Okay, so what about the bottle? I know the Jacob's Ladder themed bottles that you did have was very popular with tourists and locals alike. So have you done anything special this time around?
Well, the bottle, Olivier didn't think that the bottle would sell well in France with the steps, because that is obviously native to Saint Helena. So we have a special bottle that comes out of a company called Univers in Switzerland. These bottles have been specially printed. In other words, the actual bottle holds the print. There is no label. It's all printed under the Invincible Esprit trademark with the Napoleon's wings, because he used to have wings on his standard when he was fighting. That is basically a 500ml, and when you finish with the bottle it becomes a decanter. It has a beautiful plastic stopper which sits in the top, so you end up with a nice decanter as well.
Okay, so Paul, how have sales been so far, and what do you predict? Will every bottle be sold?
I would imagine he will sell every bottle. It's only 1,000 Napoleon fans is a drop in the ocean, so I'm sure he will sell every single one.
The events marking the Bicentenary, although some somber and some fun, did not have very much in the way of entertainment for children of the island. However, St Helena Tourism were mindful of this and collaborated with the Cubs and Scouts to arrange a kite flying day on Friday afternoon at Francis Plain. It started slowly, but at its peak, Francis Plain held over 50 people flying kites. The cloudy grey skies were given a much-needed splash of colour as kite after kite took to the heavens. As well as the Cubs and Scouts, quite a few families attended, and the kids who took part were allowed to keep the kites they used on the day for future use. Prizes were awarded in 3 categories. The person who kept their kite airborne for the longest was William Caswell. The only person to show up with a homemade kite was Colby Richards, and Ebony Brunerton was the youngest flyer. Last week, we brought you news of the start of Cancer Awareness Month, and it has been going well, with the famous Pink Panther being seen around Jamestown seeking donations. Also this week was the annual Pink Walk. Over 250 people showed up to march against cancer on Sunday at 2 p.m. Earlier that morning, the newly restored General's Quarters at Longwood House was opened for tours for the very first time. It made for a good atmosphere when walkers gathered in the gardens of Napoleon's former residence before registering for the walk. The walk was along the avenue, past Foxy's garage, through part of the airport access road, past Reggie's takeaways, and back to Longwood House. Everyone was in good spirits, and the walk was completed within an hour after starting. Following the walk, participants enjoyed free tea and eats. Prizes were awarded on the day. Anthony Bennett was the first male to complete the short walk, and his son, Blaine Bennett, was the first boy under the age of 15. In the ladies category, Rosie and Marcella Mittens scooped prizes for the First Lady and girl to complete the short walk. For the long route, the First Lady to return was Anita Robinson, and Arthur Leo was the first male. Lucas Robinson and Morgan Hanna picked up the under-15s prizes. The organisers were overwhelmed by the support received. and told SAMS they were amazed at the level of support shown. Here now, though, is Liam Yan with a roundup of last week's footballing action.
Cheers, Damien. On Wednesday, 14th of October, crowds gathered at Francis Plain to watch our very own Saint Helena national team play against a side from the HMS Lancaster that was visiting the island at the time. The game was very entertaining to watch and ended 3-0 to a team of elite local players. The first half was very closely contested, with just this goal from Kevin Hudson as the separator. The Saints adopted a very attacking style of football, which would be expected with the likes of Rico Benjamin, Chris Owen, Shane Stroud and co. There were a few chances for the Saints to increase their lead in the first 45, including the upcoming volley from Stroud that was but just wide of the near post. There were plenty of shots at goal from the Saints, though finding the target seemed to be quite a challenge for some of the island's leading goal scorers. Here Stroud comes close again with a right-footed effort from the edge of the box. The Saints went 2-0 up in the second half with this strike from Owen. Rico Benjamin then had the chance to increase the lead, but for alert goalkeeping from the Navy's number 1. The Navy's only clear-cut chance of the game came via a penalty, which went well wide of the post. Saints walked away clear winners after a third and final goal from Rico Benjamin. Now to our local football league. In Saturday's first game, Hearts edged one step closer to league glory with a 3-1 win over Axis. Hearts started the game a bit shaky and went 1-0 down in the first half through Dane Wade, but staying strong, they got a goal back from Jason George and eventually went on to control the play and came out with a win after a Chris Owen penalty and a well-taken free kick from Rico Chico Williams. In the alley game on Sunday, Wolves played out their closest match of the season. Raiders did end the match as 4-2 victors after a Dane Leo hat-trick and Alistair Buckley's strike, but Wolves will be happy with their performance, getting on the score sheet twice through Rico Coleman and even levelling the score at 1 point in the match. Sunday's second match saw Chop Chop Boys jump to third place on the league table after goals from Clayton Young, Alonzo Henry, Eugene Williams and Kevin Hudson ensured a 4-0 victory over the Fugees. The game was very closely contested in the first half. A penalty and a possible offside goal in the second gave Chop Chop a huge upper hand and they eventually ran away with the match, much to the disappointment of Fugees players and supporters alike. In the weekend's final fixture, Rovers made sure the season would go down to the wire after beating the Wirebirds by 5-2. It seemed that Rovers' title hopes might have been over when Joseph Ace Longwani put the Wirebirds 1-0 up with a thunderous long-range goal in the first half. Rovers then proved why they were fighting champions and went on to end the half 2-1 up through a Clayton Benjamin penalty and a Brian Sim free kick. Rovers then upped their game in the second and finished the match comfortably with goals from Sim, Ronan Legg and Rico Benjamin. Wirebird's second came via a Wayne Crowley own goal. Now for this week's feature game. Despite the best efforts of Crystal Rangers and Bellboys, Saturday's 3:30 p.m. fixture ended in a goalless draw. Both sides started lively and there were chances at either end. Here, Cody Thomas' shot fails to work the Yanyan in goal. Tyler Brady, as he has been in previous games, looked lively for Bellboys, but couldn't manage to produce at the vital moments, though credit must be given to the Rangers' defence, who made sure Brady could not get a clean strike at goal. At the other end, Rangers also pressured for an early goal, but despite poor attempts at punching clear, keeper Jan was well positioned to deal with this effort at goal. Here again we see Bellboys find striker Brady with a well-weighted pass over the defence, but again he cannot produce the necessary control to give himself a strike at goal. A similar situation to Rangers' Thomas at the point of their attack. As expected, the game was very close with chances at either end. Despite good build-up play, neither team could pull off a good enough shot to test the two informed keepers. Here we see man of the match Shane Benjamin track back to put in a good piece of defending on Rangers' Jordan Johnson. Bellboys came close from a free kick, but for an alert goalkeeping from starman Agrippa Messina. Messina was on hand again in the second to stop the pacey Damian Shaky Stevens from getting a strike at goal. Stevens was becoming a nuisance to the Rangers' defence, but at times lacked the support from his teammates. After discovering long-range shots wasn't going to work, Bellboys came within inches of taking the lead with this strike from Brady. Keeping the pressure on the Rangers, young Callum Alec tried his luck at goal soon after. With 20 minutes left to play, Bellboys looked the most likely to score and had numerous of chances to do so. Here Stevens runs clear of the defence, but again the final finish was poor. Probably Bellboys' biggest chance of the game fell to Martin Henry in the dying moments. Latching onto a well-weighted pass from Paul Tyson, Stevens puts the ball into the area, where it eventually lands to Henry, who could only strike up and over the bar. The final whistle blew, with neither team able to pick up the win, though both teams will feel the result is fair and will happily take the point. Hearts still sit in pole position to lift this year's league trophy, though it is definitely not over yet. That's all for tonight, so until next week, I am Liam Yan. Back to you, Damien.
Thank you, Liam. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of SAMS Newsbite. I am Damien Obey. Thank you all for watching.